Okay, so today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review of this book, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. I want to call this a review, but I think I'm much safer off warning you guys by saying this is going to be more of a rant than a review, more of a discussion, if you will, because there are things I want to talk to you guys about. So anyway, let's just talk about the vital stats first. Treasure Island, the author, Robert Louis Stevenson. The age rating and genre is, well, I'm going to call it an adult classic. One day I'm going to do a video very soon where I talk about why I rate all of my classics as adult for age rating. We'll get into that. But because I do adult and classic. This book was written in the 1800s, which makes the writing style the Victorian era writing style. So the plot of this book is that we're following a boy whose name is Jim Hawkins. Due to a set of circumstances that would be considered a spoiler, so I won't say them here, but he comes across a treasure map that's going to lead him to all this treasure that has been buried on an island known as Treasure Island. So, to cut a long story short, Jim assembles a crew together and everyone goes out to find the treasure. It is very much a pirating at sea type of book, and this is my first pirate read. Growing up, I was never really a pirate fan. I'm not saying anything against anyone who loves the pirate thing, it just wasn't my thing. But I decided to read this book this month and give it a go, and I have thoughts. So, let's first talk about the writing style, because that was the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome. Being that this book is written in the incredibly early 1800s makes it a Victorian era style of writing. I did not know that that's what this was. A couple of you guys that were buddy reading this with me on the Discord alerted me to this, and I appreciate that. And then I was talking to other people as well who were discussing the Victorian era with me, and it is certainly a tough style for modern day readers to read if you're not used to it. To give you an example, the sentences are really drawn out. I don't think I've ever seen so many commas placed into a sentence that isn't listing things. So if you're listing something, I understand that you would list an item, put a comma, list an item, put a comma, list an item, put a comma. But instead, with Robert Louis Stevenson's writing style, it's like, write 10 words, put in a comma, keep going, write another 10 words, put another comma, keep going, write another 10 words, and then put in a full stop, or if you're American, a period. And it was just a bit of whoa for me. So much so that I literally got through the first paragraph of this book and said, nope, we're switching over to audio. And that's what I did. I switched over to the audio book and listened to that while reading the book. Quick shout out for the audio version to the audio actor I was listening to, Timothy West. He did an amazing job. If you want an incredible version of the audiobook, I cannot highly recommend Timothy West's version enough. This is the first time I've listened to Timothy West. The guy was just fantastic. His character voices are so good. So the writing style is definitely a massive hurdle, and it took me a long time to get used to. And there were times where I found myself incredibly confused as to what was going on, because I found it hard to keep up with this writing style and translate what it is that Robert Louis Stevenson is trying to get me to understand. In saying that, once I got used to the writing style, I really did end up enjoying some of the book. So now let me move on to the second thing that I want to rant about, because I guess I want to end the first rant that I have, which is the writing style, with I would love to read this book rewritten in a modern day writing style. If that is a possibility, or if this has happened and you know that it has, comment below and let me know where I can find it. If I can read this with a modern day writing style, I think I would have enjoyed it a heck of a lot more than I did. But now we're going to move on to the fact that I found this book to be rather formulaic. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean that I felt there was a formula to it. And the formula in this case was lots of high action, and then we slow things down. Lots more high action, and then we slow things down. Lots more high action, and then we slow things down. Because of this, I really found myself enjoying the high action scenes, but when we got to the point of things really slowing down, I found myself to be incredibly bored with the book. So I averaged it out and gave this book a 3-star rating in the end. I should have probably said that earlier, but there you go. 3 stars from me. So I understand why this book is a classic. I understand why people love this book. I also understand that from what people have said to me, this is kind of where the whole pirate thing began with Treasure Island, and then people kind of adapted their own works because of Treasure Island. It kind of started everything, kind of like with fantasy, how we have Lord of the Rings. I did not enjoy that series either, but we'll just move on. But J.R.R. Tolkien did a lot for fantasy. Apparently, Robert Louis Stevenson with this book did a lot for pirating adventure books. So I can appreciate that. And you guys, this is not the first time that I've read a book that I didn't necessarily love, but that I can appreciate what it has done for future generations of something to do with that book, and in this case being what it's done for adventure books since. I think that's absolutely wonderful. I just don't think it was the book for me. But was it enough to intrigue me to want to read more pirating adventures? At this stage, no. And it's kind of sad because a lot of you that I've spoken to about this book were let down by the fact that this does not motivate me to want to read more pirating stuff. But one thing that I love about us as readers in general is that we all have different reading tastes. So there are books or even genres that I read that you guys probably don't like either. But for me, I don't know. One of my biggest issues that I have with pirates, and I spoke to a friend last night who loves pirating stuff. She's seen tons of pirating movies and read tons of pirating books. And I said to her, does the morally grey character theme continue with pirate stuff? And she said, yeah, it's one of the greatest things about it. And I said, well, that's great. It's one of the things I didn't like about it. Because in this book, one of the characters that we follow is a well-known name for a pirate, Long John Silver, with his wooden leg and his parrot. I loved Long John Silver. I thought that he was incredibly charismatic, and I just fell for this character so quickly, so early on. Quick little spoiler here, so just skip ahead 20 seconds while I say this. Okay, spoiler happening right now. So, as you guys know, Long John Silver, he betrays the crew. That's the spoiler. I want to make reference to that, but for those who haven't read it, obviously I don't want them to see that. So, with that spoiler about Long John Silver, I found myself, when that had happened, and then after that, and then Long John being his charismatic self, I found that I very easily got along with him, and I struggled after I read this book with the fact that I was able to so easily do that, all things considered. And this is spoiler free, so all things considered. One thing that I had an issue with as well was that this is a dual perspective book. We follow mostly the perspective of Jim Hawkins, but then we follow the perspective of another character that I'll call the Doctor, Dr. Livesey. And I didn't even realize until I was halfway through Dr. Livesey's portion of the book. To kind of break it up, we have the first half of the book is all Jim Hawkins' perspective. Then the third quarter of the book is Dr. Livesey's perspective, and then the final quarter of the book goes back to Jim Hawkins' perspective. So it's literally just one quarter of the book that is Dr. Livesey's perspective, but I didn't even realize that we're following his perspective. And so something was going on there where there was a massive disconnect for me that I didn't realize it. I thought that we were still following Jim, and then I came to find out when we follow Dr. Livesey's perspective, Jim is not with Dr. Livesey. I can say that much. That's not a spoiler. If you haven't read it, you have no clue what I'm referring to anyway. So Jim's not there. And here I'm thinking we're following Jim and everything, and then became quite disoriented when the Doctor says, oh, by the way, about Jim and how he's not with us at the moment. It's like, wait, what? What's going on around here, says Timon. Oh, look, what can I say? I don't know. I just don't think that the book was for me. Do I appreciate reading it 100%? I appreciate getting the original canonical work of this story, having listened to an incredibly condensed half an hour audio version of it many times as a child growing up, and having seen a couple of film versions of Treasure Island, it was good to get the original canonical work and see what Robert Louis Stevenson originally did that inspired the other things that I had witnessed or consumed to do with the original work. So I did appreciate that, but on the whole, I just really didn't appreciate the book that much. So I'm sorry, you guys. I know that this is a very well-loved book, but once again, one thing that I love about us as readers is that we can all have our own individualistic tastes. And to give you an example of that, I was talking to my mother quite recently, and I was explaining a story to her, fantasy that I'd read recently, and she said, "Oh, fantasy. Okay, so that book's for you and not for me." And I mean, that's what I mean. I think it would be the same with me if someone said to me, "I'm reading a pirate book about this and this." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. That's a book for you, not for me." But I think that's wonderful. I don't even know why I'm making a big deal about saying sorry. I feel like I'm letting you guys down, that I don't like the book, but at the same time, I need to be true to my thoughts and feelings on this book, because if people come to my channel looking for suggestions for books and they check out my reviews, they would trust that I'm being 100% authentic with them when I'm reviewing a book. And so I'm never going to come into a review for any book and say, I love this, when I did not like it. Or the other way around. I'm not going to say I didn't like it if I did. So, yeah. I'm sure you understand. Here on BookTube, we're a very understanding community where very little drama happens, so I appreciate that. Look, again, I'm glad I read it. Not only am I glad I read the original canonical work, I'm also glad that it means I've read another classic this year. I'm doing really well. Last year, I think I read 2 classics by the end of the year. This year, I've read about 8 or 9, getting on close to 10. I mean, it's just incredible. And I've had amazing experiences with most of them. Just not this one. If you're in the mood for a pirating adventure book, then I do highly recommend this book, because the majority of it is based around a pirating adventure. If you do not struggle with the Victorian era of writing style, go right ahead. That's what this is. So there you go. If you do struggle with certain tough types of writing styles when it comes to classic books, be mindful of that going in. It is definitely not in any way, shape or form the easiest writing style to read. While it is not Shakespearean inspired, and by that I mean it does not contain the words thee, thy, thou, thou, and thank goodness for that, it is still a very complex writing style to read. So if you do struggle with it but you want to push through, then I do highly recommend the audiobook. And again, I will shout out Timothy West's version, because the guy just did an amazing job, and I hope to listen to more of his works in the future. A disappointing one for me, but you may like it, and if you do, comment below and let me know what it was you loved about it. I'll definitely get involved in that discussion with you over there. But the people that I was reading this book with as a buddy read over on my Discord, they seemed to really love the book, so that's great. It just wasn't one for me, unfortunately. But that is where I am going to leave it for this spoiler-free review of Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, an adult classic book that I gave 3 stars. Letting you guys go with peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading!